And so Money in the Bank is in the books. I'm Adam T from the Dark Match Podcast. We're going to go ahead and get you set up with a full recap, rundown, and review of the show. And let's get right into it. The entertaining part of the evening actually started in the pre-show. You know, the Shield versus the Usos. And me and John Smith, my co-host, felt that, you know, why are you putting the Shield on the pre-show? This is one of the better things you have going on in WWE. Why would you put it on the pre-show, which is going to be on YouTube, which only had 46,000 views? I'm guessing more people bought the pay-per-view than that. So nobody knows about the YouTube pre-show. You can say that it's going to be on the pre-show, but nobody obviously went and saw it. So why are you going to keep this a secret? You know, it was a great match. It started out a little rough with the crowd seemed to already be focusing on Rob Van Dam and chanting his name in the early part of the match. But then it really got going. And let's just say by the end of the match, the crowd was chanting, "This is awesome," which I've never heard on a pre-show before. So this match really had some great spots, some great storytelling. The Usos held their own. They made a good showing of themselves. The Shield got the win. They look stronger because of this. It looked like they're continuing to evolve as a tag team, really been able to take on all comers, and they're looking powerful. At this point in the evening, it's a great way to kick off the show, you know, for those who actually watched. But the real show got kicked off with the Money in the Bank World Heavyweight Championship contract match. And this, I'll go ahead and say, this was as good as the night was going to get. And that's not a bad thing, because this was an amazing match. And the funny thing about this, and I'm not sure how much it's been touched upon on Twitter or other podcasts or anything, but to me, I find it fascinating. There's not a single face in this entire match. I mean, you definitely have guys that are smart mark darlings, and as far as Fandango and Dean Ambrose go, those are the two favorites. And they were out. I mean, you could probably pick them out to be the favorites to win this match, either one of those guys. And I would have been fine with that. I mean, both of them have proven that they're ready, you know, to more than ready to make that next leap. And it's not like the World Heavyweight Championship's a prestigious belt to begin with. You have Dolph Ziggler who's trying to bring it back to prominence, but it's still the undercard belt as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's how a lot of people view it in the WWE universe. But you had a great match here. There were a lot of great spots, as you can expect from matches like this. Money in the Bank has really become like the third biggest pay-per-view that people look forward to because it's so entertaining for the matches itself. I think this probably replaces, I mean, Survivor Series really hasn't been what it was supposed to be for maybe 15, 20 years, but since they brought it up. But, I mean, you have Royal Rumble and you have WrestleMania. Those are the top two. I mean, people look forward to those matches. They're going to be fun. They're going to be entertaining. They're going to have some twists and turns. And, you know, you're expecting the best. And I think you can start expecting the best now with Money in the Bank. They haven't really had a bad show yet. I mean, last year you can say that John Cena winning was garbage, and I think it was garbage. It was the beginning of a really bad, you know, once again cyclical run for John Cena, putting him in his dominant position and letting him run roughshod over everything and everybody. But it was funny, though, that he was the only person to not cash in his contract. But still, I mean, that Money in the Bank match last year, as far as the Raw side goes, that was pretty predictable, and it was painful. I think there was only 4 guys in it, and they were all seasoned vets, so it really defeated the whole purpose or the spirit of the Money in the Bank idea. Really wasn't fulfilled last year on that side of it. But the SmackDown side of it was another great match. And I think I mean, the year before that, both matches were great. And so, I mean, you can expect a really entertaining pay-per-view, I think, for Money in the Bank. They've really set their standards with this pay-per-view. So this match was fantastic. There were a lot of different surprises. We'll go over them right now. But as far as the storytelling goes, this was Cody Rhodes' match. At the beginning of it, he got a little bit of a, you know, all these heels are good pretty much outside of Jack Swagger. So they're going to get some respect with this Philadelphia crowd. But Cody Rhodes, I think, was probably 4th or 5th down the list as far as guys that they would be cheering for to win this thing. And like I said, Fandango and Ambrose would be 1 and 2, and you could pick, either one to be 1 or 2. So when Cody Rhodes would start having these spots and this little momentum build, the crowd started to get into it, and it really picked up when he delivered a drop kick to We the People. I don't know what they're going to call themselves, but the Real Americans, I guess that's what they're going for. But, Cesaro and Swagger had this spot going where Cesaro was on Swagger's shoulders and he was going to stand up because there was no ladder in the ring. And that's how he was going to retrieve the briefcase. And once he got to the briefcase, he had Cody Rhodes launch himself from the outside on the apron and to deliver a drop kick that would break up that attempt. That was a nice spot, and the crowd really started to get into it at that point. They were chanting, "This is awesome." Cody Rhodes was really starting to build some momentum here. Cody Rhodes would deliver a couple of crossroads, one first to Fandango, and then Barrett looked like he was going to deliver Wasteland, and then it was going to probably devolve into one of those everybody jump in and do your finisher bits. But Rhodes broke that immediately, got out of it, delivered the crossroads, 2 in a row, crowd's going crazy. Cody Rhodes showing a lot of emotion here, and he's endearing himself to this crowd. And really, he won them over. Let's be honest. By the end of this, the crowd was fully on Cody Rhodes' side, and they were hoping that he would win this. Stepping away from that and going to the other spots, Fandango did an amazing sunset flip powerbomb on Wade Barrett when Barrett was about to get the briefcase. There was another spot involving the Real Americans when Swagger and Cesaro were holding a ladder, each end of the ladder horizontally. You had Dean Ambrose caught in the ladder. He ends up skinning the cat and standing on the ladder. Looks like he's going to jump up and try to make a go for the briefcase when Cesaro and Swagger dump him over the top rope and he crashes outside. And that was an entertaining spot, and the crowd was really involved in that one. So there's a lot of good storytelling. There's a lot of great spots out here. But then the moment of truth comes and Cody Rhodes going crazy out here, clearing the ring, gets his chance, his opportunity to grab the briefcase. And it really came after he cleared the ring. Then you had Dean Ambrose come up and try to stop him. And they deliver blows, just harsh blows and headbutts back and forth and smashing each other's skulls on the ladder. And you have Cody Rhodes busted open at this point. He's bleeding all over the place. And it's a really just a great spot right here. And it builds a lot of drama up and everything. And then you have him get rid of Ambrose. It looks like he's finally going to clinch the spot here and get the briefcase. Then here comes the Shield. This is what we had talked about on the podcast, that the Shield was going to come down, run roughshod, and Dean Ambrose would get the victory. And that's how it looked like it was going to go. At this point, the Shield comes out. They destroy Cody Rhodes. They take care of I believe it was Barrett and Fandango, try to make an effort fight them off. They get speared. They get thrown out of the ring. And it looks like Dean Ambrose is going to climb the ladder, but then here come the Usos, and I think that was a great touch right there, because that's another swerve, obviously, but it gives the Usos more credit, and it lets you think that they're going to continue this rivalry a little bit longer. It's not going to be one and done feud, and I like that. I think that's what builds stars. You can build up the titles that way too. That's what feuds do. The rivalries, feuds. I like the fact they're going to bring the Usos in on this. But they fight them off. There's a big melee going on the outside between the Usos, the Shield, and pretty much everybody else in the ladder match. And it looks like Dean Ambrose is going to sneak away with the brief. He's at the top of the ladder, and then Cody Rhodes grabs the side of the ladder, pushes, and Dean Ambrose goes flying over the top rope, landing on the entire melee that's going on outside. So everybody's cleared out. The crowd's going crazy at this point. They're chanting Cody, Cody, Cody. He grabs the ladder, climbs his way to the top, and out of nowhere comes Damien Sandow, his best friend, to push him off and claim the briefcase for himself. He's the winner, and I obviously did not see this coming, but I love it. I love it because I didn't see it coming, and I love it for the possibilities here. And it also gets Damien Sandow major heat. I mean, I can't express that enough. He's already one of the better heels in the business, but he's still, they're lacking in faces so much that the crowd still cheers for him. You're going to hear a big cheer for him, as well as a lot of boos every time he comes out, because he does his job so well, and because there's really nobody to go up against and to stand up to him. So by doing this, you're creating yourself a heel or a face that could stand up to him in Cody Rhodes by double crossing, and you're also going to get him a huge reaction from not just your general audience, but obviously the smart mark crowd that was packed in this Philadelphia arena that probably would have cheered. They did cheer Damien Sandow when he came out to his entrance, but they weren't cheering at the end right here because they had been won over by Cody Rhodes. So whoever booked this match deserves an MVP for the pay-per-view. This was great. They did everything right here. I mean, Cody Rhodes, they told a story within a story here by building him up as the guy that everybody wanted to win. And then you turn Damien Sandow against him. You create this monster heel. And now he's got the power. He's got the briefcase. So he could also challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship whenever he wants. And this means only good things for both he and Cody Rhodes going forward. Now, everybody gets a little more excited when guys turn heel. You know, there's a lot because people know that sort of, for whatever reason, a wrestler feels like he can lose his inhibitions and really jump in and sink his teeth into a heel character. And that's, obviously that was true for CM Punk. We really saw him branch out and become a monster heel and a monster personality in general. But when he turned heel, it was a huge thing. And when a lot of guys turn heel, we actually get to see their personality come through. They don't feel like, for some whatever reason, when their faces, there's this blandness to them, and they think that they have to act a certain way in order to get a basic cheer response. And it doesn't really work out for them anymore. I mean, this is 2013, and I think people know better. You're always going to have kids, though. You're always going to have, the kids that cheer for John Cena and all that stuff. But as you can tell, the crowd's ready for a change. And that's why the heels are getting a lot more face reaction. And anyways, people get really excited when guys turn heel. I'm very interested to see how Cody Rhodes becomes a face right here. Because if they handle this poorly, which they've pretty much handled every face turn poorly, and I'm not putting that on anybody in particular, but that just seems to be the way they go. They get a little more bland somehow. That might just be the nature of faces, but I for one think that if you can turn face and still remain interesting, there's a lot of money to be made there. And so Cody Rhodes right now has a big opportunity in front of him. He's been turned on. I mean, Dolph Ziggler's doing a good job with it as it is. I mean, his face turn has been pretty natural and genuine, and the crowd loves him. It'll be really interesting to see how Cody Rhodes deals with this and what we see him do on Monday night. That's going to be the biggest Monday Night Raw of his career. I mean, this is a huge step forward for him, so we'll see how it goes. But regardless, that was a great Money in the Bank match to open up the night. So next up, you would have Brad Maddox make his way down to the ring, appointed general manager of Monday Night Raw. He would deliver Joey Styles would call it, he killed the crowd in Philadelphia on Twitter. He said that. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, he's still figuring things out. I think he came off as a snarky little heel. There was a video tribute that he had put together of highlights of Vicky's run. And obviously they were filled with a bunch of cake being thrown in her face, a lot of embarrassing moments, a lot of her screaming, and a lot of tomfoolery going on. So that was a cute little segment, I guess. And the very next match would be for the Intercontinental Championship. Curtis Axel with Paul Heyman versus The Miz. Now, I say with Paul Heyman because The Miz would, while being on the outside and the referee's back being turned for some reason or another, The Miz decides to pull an Eddie Guerrero and slap himself in the face, hit the deck. And then when the referee comes back and sees what's going on, The Miz, holding his face, points at Paul Heyman and says, he obviously hit me or something. And I'm a wrestler, but, this fat little man somehow knocked me down. That makes a lot of sense. The referee buys it because he's a very smart man. And once again, this goes back into the whole, we're in 2013, but are we really? Every once in a while, WWE likes to pull the whole replay book. They'll have a referee check the replay and they'll see whether he was okey-doked or not, whether he was fooled, whether he had the rug pulled over his head. And the referee didn't care enough about the situation to check the replay on this instance. Otherwise, he would have figured out that Paul Heyman did not do anything to The Miz, and The Miz was fabricating the entire story. But they send Paul Heyman back to the back. He's banished from ringside. And this is obviously not a popular decision in Philadelphia, where they were even chanting Paul Heyman's name throughout this match, the early part of it anyways. They would continue to chant his name throughout the match in the fact that we want Heyman, bring back Heyman, all that stuff. That just goes to show you that this match should have been on the pre-show because they don't really care about these two wrestlers at all. Curtis Axel, there's a lot of promise here. He did get a face reaction, as you would expect. The Miz really got an unfavorable reaction, as he's always been getting. I mean, we go off on this in the podcast all the time, so I apologize if you hear this enough. He just has no redeemable qualities. I don't know why he's a part of WWE to begin with, let alone getting movies and all this other stuff. You know, he should just go away and never come back. But the worst thing that could happen here is if The Miz actually wins. And we don't need him with a belt again. We don't need him on TV again. But we don't need him embroiled in a feud. But thankfully, his two attempts at getting a submission with the figure four leg lock were unsuccessful. Curtis Axel turned and reversed it on one of them, and then he made it to the ropes to break it, and he ended up winning with his faceplant move. I'm not sure they even have a name for it yet, but Curtis Axel gets the win here cleanly. That's the best way that they could have gone in this route. And I'm hoping this means that we'll see less and less of The Miz until he fades away into obscurity, but I don't think they're going to go that route. Somebody or another really likes The Miz back there, and I'm not sure what kind of feedback they're getting, because the crowd isn't giving them feedback. Nobody on Twitter really is giving them feedback. Nobody likes The Miz, but they'll keep shoving him down our throats. Sound familiar? Next up, we'd have the Divas Championship up for grabs with Kaitlyn versus AJ. And to be quite honest, I was looking forward to this one because they've really surprised me. I mean, last month at Payback, they had a good match. They had a really good match, really. I mean, it was one of the better Diva matches, I think, of the PG era. They've been embroiled in this feud that is borderline silly, borderline drama-filled, and I don't know. It's sort of missing the mark, to me at least. But it's still a good shot. It's a good effort. I'll say that on both of their parts. Kaitlyn would come out. It's a very short match. I think it lasted 6 or 7 minutes. And there was some fighting outside. Kaitlyn actually pushed AJ off the top rope at one point. She landed into Big E's arms. Otherwise, that probably would have been a dastardly fall, or so the announcers would have us believe. Then Kaitlyn, on her way in, would be rolled up into a small package, but she would break out of that. She would end up hitting all of her major moves, including the spear, except AJ would roll underneath the bottom rope and avoid being pinned. AJ would eventually clinch her Black Widow submission in and get the victory. So it appears that this is the wrap up of this feud, which sort of feels lackluster to me. They had a better build up than I was expecting, and they had a good match at Payback. So I was expecting a really good match here at Money in the Bank, but they didn't deliver. It was just an okay match, and AJ gets the win. So our next match would be for the World Heavyweight Championship. Dolph Ziggler versus Alberto Del Rio. Sans Ricardo Rodriguez, who is suspended. He will kayfabe an injury. You have a great match here between these two that ends in controversy. Dolph Ziggler and Del Rio have put on some very good matches in the past. They both are good wrestlers in their own right. Ziggler, as we've talked about in our podcast, is one of the best wrestlers, if not the best in the business. He's definitely the best seller. And so when he goes up against Del Rio, he just makes Del Rio's moves that are already pretty good just look that much more devastating. I mean, the German suplex that was delivered in this match just made my neck hurt. It was just so perfectly planted. The kicks, just Ziggler sells them perfectly. There was a great top rope reverse suplex that was performed on Ziggler by Del Rio. It was fantastic. Had the crowd oohing and awing. And this one would come down to AJ Lee making her way down to the ring after we've had a really good match. I guess I haven't looked at the clock, but it's probably about 15 to 20 minutes in. We've had a really good match, and AJ comes in. Dolph is pushing, or not pushing, but he's motioning her to go back to the locker room. Get out of here. I got this. Don't, just stay away. Then you would have a couple of more solid moves by Del Rio. He pulls down his knee pad. It looks like he's going to kick or knee Ziggler with his exposed knee brace. And the announcers are really selling this is the reason that AJ would come in the ring and bash Del Rio in the head with her Divas title and interfere and cause a disqualification because she didn't want Ziggler to get kneed or take any more, I guess, severe punishment to the head with this exposed knee brace than he would have. So is that the reason? We'll find out on Monday Night Raw, obviously, but this is the beginning of the end for this pairing, you would assume. People were already starting to question it, on Twitter and everything, the WWE Universe. Why is Dolph Ziggler still with AJ when obviously AJ is the top women's heel and Ziggler is one of the top faces? So it seems like an odd pairing to begin with, but, why are they still together and why are they ever going to explain this? So this probably is the beginning of the end for that pairing. The match ends. Del Rio gets the win by disqualification, and Ziggler and AJ are left arguing in the ring. Actually, it's more of a one-sided tongue lashing. Ziggler is really just chastising AJ for ever getting involved. AJ looks very distraught. She's about to cry, and then Ziggler leaves the ring and makes his way back, very frustrated, to the locker room. And I would really like to see what this sets up for Alberto Del Rio. I would guess this is not the last time that we're going to see Ziggler versus Del Rio for the World Heavyweight Championship, but we'll have to tune in tomorrow night and find out. So following the World Heavyweight Championship match, we would have the WWE title being defended, John Cena versus Mark Henry. And this match going into the least excited I was about any match going into this pay-per-view. I mean, for obvious reasons, you would think this is going to be a very plodding, slow, brawler kind of match. And I'm not saying that they can't put on good matches. It's just it's like I could book this match. I could choreograph it before I even saw it. And really, they played right into it. Nothing really wowed me or surprised me about this match as far as outcome goes, or as far as what I saw in the ring, the storytelling. It wasn't bad, but it was very predictable. The entire storyline going throughout this match was John Cena wasn't able to get Mark Henry up. They really played up Mark Henry's strength, and he did a good job in the feud, in the storyline building up to this match. It gave me hope that there was a slim possibility that Mark Henry would win, but overall I knew that John Cena was going to prevail because that's their mindset, and that's what they think sells, and that's what John Cena deserves to be in that top spot with the belt, especially coming off Money in the Bank, and so regardless, that was a storyline, is that Mark Henry's strength would be too much for John Cena. And so he couldn't get him up in the AA. Once he finally delivered the AA, he couldn't get the 3 count on the first try. So it's like, what do you have to do to put Mark Henry away? Mark Henry would deliver his World's Strongest Slam. Cena would kick out of that, obviously. It's going to take, just built on the logic that we know about John Cena, about how they've booked him in the past. It's going to take at least 3 World's Strongest Slams to beat him. He's not, especially in a pay-per-view, he's not going to lose to anything short of being run over by a freight train. That's just the way they've booked him. So, that's why you have very slim hope that Mark Henry would actually win this. But I would figure that if he was going to win, it was going to be some sort of shadiness or dirtiness, which he would go to in this match. After the kick out by Cena, Henry would get frustrated and rip off the top turnbuckle of the bottom right hand corner, and then when referee Scott Armstrong #HardBodyRef was replacing that one, he would go to the other turnbuckle and rip that one off, but not before he threw in a couple of chairs into the ring. And Scott Armstrong was like, what's going on here? Why are you, this is not a no DQ match. And he's throwing the chairs on the outside. So That would open up a spot where Mark Henry would try to get John Cena to bash his head into that corner, the exposed turnbuckle, but instead he would be. That's how it always happens. The guy that always rips that top turnbuckle off gets his head planted in there. And after that, I think they bumped into the referee. Yeah, Scott Armstrong falls down, incapacitated for about 2 seconds, and then as he's regaining his composure, Mark Henry kicks John Cena in the right in the berries, and he would go for the pin. Still can't put John Cena away. John Cena would end up putting the STF on, or is the STFU? What is he going? What is that move going by for John Cena right now? I'm not sure what the name of it is. He would try that a couple of times, and the second time would be a charm. So he gets Mark Henry to tap out. Once again, there's something that still rubs me the wrong way about that too. It's like, if you're gonna beat a guy like Mark Henry, who's this big brute who you wanted to bill as a big brute, don't have him tap out. Just have him get beat. But it's like you're adding insult to injury to the believability of his brutishness. I don't like it. I just don't like that. I don't like that guys like Cesaro tapping out either, or Sheamus. I don't like that. If you're gonna have him tap out, have it be a statement. Have it be like for an importance that's greater than the actual just match. But they don't share my same thoughts in that sense, and they just like Cena running roughshod over everybody. So John Cena retains the WWE title. So that leaves us with the WWE title Money in the Bank match that is being dubbed the All-Stars match for some God knows reason. But this is the one that I was excited for. I mean, this made this pay-per-view. I think I was a little bit surprised that it was the last match of the night. But I mean, as far as entertainment goes, as far as like the match that is the marquee match, the one that's probably selling this pay-per-view, I have no problem with it going last. Now, if you had the world or the WWE title match going last, then obviously it leaves for some intrigue because we already know who has the briefcase. But since we don't know that, it's pretty anticlimactic as far as that goes, that aspect of it goes. But it's still a hell of a match, and it still deserves to be its own main event. So having said that, here we go. Going into this match, our official prediction was Daniel Bryan. And that was still with the clouded, like, we didn't know who was going to be added, if anybody was going to be added. Was it going to be Bray Wyatt? Was it going to be Brock Lesnar? There was a lot of speculation going around that who's going to take Kane's spot. Well, they never addressed that. Nobody's going to take Kane's spot. The spot's lost. So instead of 7, it was 6. And I think it's probably the right move, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure, but if Bray Wyatt was in this match, would he have overshadowed the match itself, or would it have been too much too soon to even give him the title or give him the contract? I mean, those questions probably were raised before the decision, if there was one, was going to be made, whether or not to put him in this match. But would it have also been similar to Ambrose and the Shield and the other match? Would we have just figured that the Wyatt family themselves would just run roughshod over this entire Money in the Bank match? And if they weren't, why not? Would that not sit well logically with WWE Universe? So, I mean, there's a lot of things to take in. It's not so clear cut just to say, oh, throw Bray Wyatt in there, have him win it. There's a lot of things to take into account. Having said that, he was our sleeper pick also. I just thought that they would Fandango him to an extent. Fandango made his debut at WrestleMania. How many people can say that they've done that? And not only that, but win against Chris Jericho, a seasoned vet and one of the bigger stars of the last 15 years. So I thought that WWE, there was probably a new wave of thinking in WWE creative, in WWE booking, and that they are more apt now to catapult someone who they feel has what it takes into a red hot position, like they did with Sandow, or not with Sandow, with with Fandango. But obviously they didn't feel as confident, or maybe they have other things in store for Bray Wyatt, and that's why he didn't factor in to this Money in the Bank match. Having said that, so we know our 6 competitors, and I would say that you'd have Daniel Bryan. CM Punk is one of the favorites with the crowd, but as far as logically him winning, you would say probably not, because we've already seen him and John Cena feud around this time of year before. We've seen it a bunch, and I'm not saying it's bad, but I don't think WWE would go back to that well again at such a predictable time. And on top of that, you still have the lingering, the elephant in the room, so to speak, with Brock Lesnar. And so conventional wisdom would say Daniel Bryan wins, CM Punk has a chance to win it, but Lesnar comes and interferes. Would that be what happened? You would have a very entertaining match. It wasn't as good as that first one that kicked off the show, but it was still fun, very fun and very dramatic. You would have RVD, the obvious, darling of the crowd, getting cheered throughout the match. He would get completely knocked out of the ring to start the match off. The other 5 competitors would target him and make sure that he was kept down, but he would have his spot. He ended up delivering a 5-star frog splash from the top of the highest ladder. I believe he nailed it on Christian. And Christian probably was the guy who was most forgettable in this match. He and Sheamus really, they have bland characters, and the crowd's not on board with them, and they really didn't have entertaining spots throughout this match at all. So once that was out of the way, then you have the home stretch of this match, which was Daniel Bryan. He really he went in one of those frenzies that has really catapulted him to the position that he's in right now. He's got the most momentum of any WWE star. I mean, he's hotter than pretty much anybody right now. And he's done it with a really silly character, if you think about it. I mean, he hasn't really been fantastic or charismatic on the mic or anything. He's had a weird character that's grown his long beard and is really acting like a child a lot to Kane's straight man, so to speak. And so it's a weird character, but somehow he's made it work. And I think he does this the same way he was able to endear himself on the indies, with his wrestling ability. In ring, Daniel Bryan is second to none. So he can make that work for him at any point in time. And he's been doing that, during these matches, during these face-offs with the Shield and everything. There's moments in these matches where he just excels higher than everybody else. He did that in the Money in the Bank. And he had this little streak where he was hitting his signature moves. He had a lot of energy. He was knocking people down with ladders. He'd launch himself outside onto CM Punk, who was on a pile of ladders that were laying down out there. I'm not sure how that even happened. But he would immediately get up from that as if nothing happened. He would deliver a 1 foot on each man drop kick to a couple of guys, and then kip up after that. And he was on a roll, cleared the ring with the ladders, ended up knocking Sheamus onto a ladder that was propped or laid outstretched horizontally from the announce table to the apron of the ring. And so Sheamus on the top rope was knocked onto that through that ladder. It looked really nasty. It was a good spot. And at that point, Bryan was able to clear the ring, climb the ladder. But who would stop him? Curtis Axel from the back with a chair, knocking him down, hitting him twice, putting his finishing move on him on the outside, leaving him motionless. Then you would have CM Punk deliver the GTS to Curtis Axel. And at this point, I'm thinking, well, okay, so Heyman brought Axel out there, or sent Axel out there as insurance for Punk to make sure that he would win, and obviously things would go awry. That's what the mindset is at this moment after Punk is GTS'd Curtis Axel. So then Punk goes into the ring. He's the last guy standing, but at this point, as he's slowly making his way into the ring, you have Paul Heyman come out, and he's yelling and chastising Curtis Axel, who was laid out and unconscious at this point, or so we're led to believe. And he's then turns his attention towards CM Punk, and he's cheering Punk on. Go, 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 do it, do it. And Punk is slowly, painfully slowly making his way up that ladder. And then once he gets close to the top, Paul Heyman would get up into the ring, and with a ladder that was propped on the side of the ring, smash CM Punk in the back once, and then dropping him again with another hit to his lower leg. And Punk would look up to him from his knees as if to say, "Yeah?" As if to say, "Why me? What happened? I thought you were my friend." And that's when Paul Heyman would deliver another crushing blow to CM Punk's head with the ladder. It was a vicious blow, and it actually caused blood. I was looking even on a replay to see if there was a blade spot, but there was no time for it. As soon as he got nailed with that thing, you could see up on a close-up of Punk up on the Titantron, and it showed him already bleeding from his hairline. So it was an interesting, vicious spot right there from Heyman. He would take off his jacket and storm off to the back. So this is obviously the big overlaying storyline, I would say, of the entire Money in the Bank is Paul Heyman, what he did to CM Punk. And that we did not have Brock Lesnar come out, but we had Paul Heyman do his own dirty work. And obviously this clouds the entire validity of, or should I say clouds, or just, completely thrashes and burns, set fire to validity of Paul Heyman's sincerity when he claimed that he had nothing to do with Brock Lesnar's attack on him several weeks back. So this opens a door for the crowd favorite RVD, except he isn't getting overwhelmingly cheered at this point. Perhaps the crowd is making a connection saying, "Oh, is Paul Heyman did he just do what he did for RVD?" There was obviously something like that in the air, because the crowd was not 100% on board RVD's bandwagon at this point. They were still sort of, either they did make that connection, or they were just bummed that Punk didn't get to cash it in and he got screwed over. So at this point, you have RVD climbing the top, and then out of nowhere comes Randy Orton to yank RVD off of that ladder and deliver a falling RKO to him. And that was pretty devastating, a good spot. Crowd loved it, ate it up. Randy Orton walks to the top of the ladder, nobody around him. He even takes a second to gloss over the entire situation below him, and nobody is conscious at this point. And Randy Orton claims the Money in the Bank briefcase that I didn't see coming. I don't think anybody else saw coming. It just didn't seem like it would fit Randy Orton's character at this point, the momentum that he had accrued, because he really hadn't accrued much momentum, if any at all. He'd been beaten by Daniel Bryan a couple weeks earlier on Raw, cleanly. He has been beaten, I think, by CM Punk the week before cleanly, or was on the way to being beaten by him, something like that. He's not been on a roll. Hasn't really had momentum, and he comes out the victor of the WWE title Money in the Bank match. He has the briefcase. He has a contract. First time in his career it's happened, so maybe they're, fulfilling some sort of duty by doing that to him. I'm not sure. But I always wondered also, how much that stuff comes into play when guys are booking this stuff. You think back to Undertaker in 2007 for the Royal Rumble. Was he really the guy that was supposed to win that one? Or at what point did they figure, you know what, Undertaker's never won a Royal Rumble, let's give him this one? I'm not sure. Stuff like that always fascinates me. I always wonder, what goes in the mindset of who gets to win certain matches that are special, special type matches. So that will wrap it up. It was a great Money in the Bank pay-per-view. We had a few surprises, a number of entertaining matches, one really, really, really good match, and that was the one that kicked off the show. And now it brings up a lot of questions for Raw coming up tomorrow night. So I'm going to tune in. I think I'm going to do another recap and review. So